What happens when the whole world tells you that you're too strange, too extravagant, too unpredictable, and you decide to use all of that as raw material to build one of the most extraordinary careers in world cinema? Helena Bonham Carter happens. And if you think this is just another story of talent and luck, prepare to reconsider, because what you're about to discover is far deeper and more surprising than any script she's ever acted in. If you think that an influential family guarantees an easy path in life, Helena Bonham Carter's story will make you rethink that. Born in London on May 26, 1966, she came into the world carrying a surname as heavy as gold in one of England's most traditional political families. Her great-grandfather was Prime Minister Lord Asquith, and her grandmother, Lady Violet, was a respected member of Parliament and well-known public speaker. Growing up in such a family could have led Helena down the path of power, diplomacy, or finance. After all, the doors were already open. But you know that person who's at a fancy party and prefers to stay in the corner reading a script? That was exactly her profile. From the age of 6, the girl already knew that the stage, not Parliament, was her place. What's striking is that Helena never used her last name as a stepping stone. On the contrary, she built her own identity tooth and nail, transforming the eccentricity she carried within her into a powerful fuel. And this seemingly privileged origin hit a series of challenges that you'll get to know better now. If there's one thing that truly shapes a person, it's not success, it's pain. And Helena Bonham Carter knows this all too well. When she was just 5 years old, her mother suffered a severe nervous breakdown after the death of her father, and it took her 3 long years to recover. For a young child, witnessing their mother's collapse is an experience that leaves deep, invisible scars. As if that weren't enough, years later Helena's father was diagnosed with a brain tumor and decided to have surgery. The surgery went wrong. He suffered a stroke and was left semi-paralyzed for the rest of his life, dependent on a wheelchair and with impaired vision. Helena, still a teenager, stayed home helping her mother while her siblings were already in college, taking on responsibilities that most young people her age didn't even imagine having. It was precisely in this harsh environment that she found in acting a powerful and necessary escape from reality. It wasn't a whim or vanity. It was emotional survival. She herself admitted that creating characters was a way of building a world under her own control, far from the chaos that surrounded her at home. And this need to transform herself into another person never left her. At 13, while most teenagers were preoccupied with exams and parties, Helena Bonham Carter was calling talent agents she herself found in the phone book. That's right. She overheard a schoolmate talking to an agent on the school phone, wrote down the name, and went after him on her own. Without parental help, without a recommendation, just with courage and extraordinary determination. This move revealed something essential about her personality. Helena never waited for opportunities to knock on her door. She went to them, even without experience, even without any guarantee of success. For 3 years, she went to auditions, accumulated small roles, and built her portfolio brick by brick, with the patience of someone who knows the road is long but worth it. When director Trevor Nunn called her to audition for the film Lady Jane in 1986, Helena almost refused again because she was preparing for the Oxford and Cambridge entrance exams. But fate intervened. The director insisted even more, and she eventually gave in. The result was a striking debut that opened doors for director James Ivory, who immediately cast her in A Room with a View, her second major film. There comes a point in every artist's career when success becomes a trap disguised as an opportunity. For Helena Bonham Carter, that trap had a name: the corset. Soon after her first major performances, she found herself molded into a very specific category, that of delicate, well-behaved heroines dressed in 19th century clothing. The press quickly christened this mold with a nickname that stuck: the Queen of Corsets. The Merchant Ivory productions were the main setting for this phase. Films like A Room with a View and Howard's End repeatedly cast Helena in the roles of young Victorian and Edwardian aristocrats, full of etiquette and little room to breathe, both in the costumes and the scripts. She was good at it, very good in fact, to the point of receiving a BAFTA nomination for Howard's End. But inside, restlessness was growing. Helena even said she felt like a hamster on a golden wheel. The papers would arrive, she would deliver them competently, the critics would praise them, and the cycle would begin again, just the same. There was no space for the eccentricity that bubbled up inside her, that chaotic and creative energy that couldn't be contained in any corset in the world. She knew she needed to break this pattern, but she didn't yet know how. If there's one thing the media loves, it's turning a complex story into a simple, cruel headline. And that's exactly what happened to Helena Bonham Carter when she became involved with director and actor Kenneth Branagh during the filming of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein in 1994. The problem is that Branagh was married at the time, and his wife was none other than Emma Thompson, Helena's co-star in Howard's End. The press was merciless and labeled her a homewrecker without hesitation. What few people knew was that Emma Thompson, with rare elegance, held no grudge against Helena. She even publicly stated that she understood why Branagh fell in love with both of them, each in their own way. But public opinion was not so generous, and Helena spent years carrying a reputation that she herself considered deeply unfair. The relationship with Branagh lasted until 1999 and ended at her initiative, yet another detail that the simplistic media narrative tended to ignore. What's striking about this whole story is how Helena handled the pressure without breaking down. She didn't make desperate statements or try to rehabilitate herself at anyone's expense. She continued working, continued being herself, eccentric, direct, and unfiltered. And curiously, it was precisely this attitude that began to transform her image from a real-life villain into a kind of icon of authenticity. There are moments in life when a single step in the right direction changes everything that comes after. For Helena Bonham Carter, that moment had a name, a surname, and a pack of cigarettes in her hand: Marla Singer. The role in the 1999 film Fight Club was such a radical break from everything she had done before that it seemed almost impossible to believe it was the same actress from The Queen of Corsets appearing on that screen with deep dark circles under her eyes and a worn-out coat. The path to the role wasn't easy. The producers considered Courtney Love and Winona Ryder, and the studio preferred a bigger name than Helena at the time. Director David Fincher, however, insisted on her, and Reese Witherspoon, who was in the final running, ended up turning down the role because she considered it too dark. Helena stepped in, and she went all in. She even went so far as to ask her makeup artist to apply eyeshadow with her left hand, because Marla would be the type of person who wouldn't mind messing up the eyeliner. The result was a performance that became a benchmark. The eccentricity that the media used to diminish her became exactly what made Marla Singer unforgettable. Helena won the Empire Award for Best British Actress for this work, and the world finally began to understand that she was not just a well-behaved period heroine. She was a force of nature waiting for the right door to open. There's a delightful irony in the fact that Helena Bonham Carter met the love of her life dressed as a chimpanzee. It was on the set of Planet of the Apes in 2000 that she crossed paths with Tim Burton, the brilliant and equally eccentric director, who called her and said, "Don't take this personally, but you were the first person I thought of to play a chimpanzee." Helena not only wasn't offended, but replied that he had hit the nail on the head. That's how one of the most creative and unusual partnerships in world cinema was born. The relationship between Helena and Tim Burton quickly became a topic of conversation because the two decided to live in separate, but neighboring, houses in a London suburb. He bought the house next to hers instead of simply moving into the same roof. To outsiders, it seemed extravagant, but Helena explained it with quite practical logic. Tim snores, they work from home, and they have different tastes in television. It made perfect sense for both of them. even if to the rest of the world it seemed like a movie script. For 13 years, they built a partnership that blended love, creativity, and complicity in a way rarely seen. Tim was extremely careful not to appear nepotistic, to the point of being more rigorous with Helena than with any other actor. She always needed to prove herself in every project, and she did so with a dedication that silenced any criticism before it even arrived. What Tim and Helena had was that rare kind of connection where two equally chaotic universes meet and, instead of destroying each other, create something greater. The eccentricity of one fed the other, and the result of this alchemy appeared in works that marked cinema forever. There's a transformation that no Oscar, no BAFTA, and no Golden Globe can bring about in a person, and Helena Bonham Carter discovered what it was in October 2003 when her son Billy Raymond was born. She herself described the moment with a beautiful image. It was like walking through a mirror and suddenly seeing everything in Technicolor. The woman who had always used acting as an escape from reality finally found a reality she didn't want to escape from. Billy was followed by Nell in December 2007, born just days after the premiere of Sweeney Todd in New York, meaning Helena was filming, singing, and playing a murderess while expecting her daughter to arrive. She said the first 3 months of pregnancy during filming were the most hazy of her life because the mother's brain literally starts building another brain, and her own takes a back seat. Even so, she delivered one of the best performances of her career. Motherhood profoundly and irreversibly reorganized Helena's priorities. She began to refuse roles, to schedule interviews close to home so she could rush back if needed, and to see work no longer as the center of her life, but as part of something much larger. Her children became the axis around which everything else revolved, including her most important professional decisions. What's striking is that motherhood didn't erase the artist. On the contrary, it added layers that only the experience of raising another human being can provide. Helena became more intense, more present, and paradoxically lighter at the same time. If you could assemble the perfect trio to dominate fantasy and imaginative cinema, you'd hardly find a more powerful combination than Helena Bonham Carter, Tim Burton, and Johnny Depp. The three formed a creative partnership that went far beyond the professional, becoming a kind of alternative family with its own codes, inside jokes, and a camaraderie that was clearly visible on screen. And it all started in a very simple way. Burton had been friends with Depp for years, and Helena came later, initially feeling like the third wheel of the duo. She herself humorously admitted that she didn't understand half the jokes between Tim and Johnny, because they both had cultural references from their American childhood that she simply didn't share. But time did its work, and Helena and Depp built their own solid and genuine friendship. One of the most curious points of connection was the discovery that Johnny, like her, hated watching himself on screen. When she learned this, Helena said she felt an enormous relief, as if she finally had permission not to watch herself either. Together, the three created works such as Corpse Bride, Sweeney Todd, and Alice in Wonderland, each carrying that unique blend of shadow, beauty, and twisted humor that only this trio could produce. In Alice in Wonderland, Helena brought the Red Queen to life with such an absurd yet precise energy that the film became the sixth in cinema history to surpass $1 billion at the worldwide box office. It wasn't luck, it was synergy. What this trio teaches us is that certain creative partnerships transcend work and become something akin to a language of their own. Helena, Tim, and Johnny spoke this language fluently, and the audience felt it in every scene. There's a type of character you don't play, you inhabit. And when Helena Bonham Carter received the invitation to play Bellatrix Lestrange in the Harry Potter franchise, it became clear that the role had been written for her, even if J.K. Rowling didn't know it yet. Bellatrix embodied everything Helena carried within her that was most intense and liberating. An absolutely unrestrained villain, loyal to the point of madness, cruel with elegance, and magnetic in a way that was both frightening and fascinating. It was as if the witch she had always been inside finally gained a name and a wand. Behind the scenes of the franchise, however, it wasn't all fun and games. In one of the most talked about moments of filming, Helena went a little too far in a scene where Bellatrix was holding Neville Longbottom hostage and decided to spin her wand inside actor Matthew Lewis's ear as a form of intimidation. When an explosion occurred on set and the two went in opposite directions, the wand pierced Lewis's eardrum by about 2 centimeters. The actor was temporarily deaf in one ear, and Helena was devastated by the accident, even though she wasn't intentionally at fault. Another moment that deeply affected the actress was the scene where Bellatrix tortures Hermione at Malfoy Manor in the first part of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Emma Watson herself admitted that it was difficult for both of them to film it, and Helena surprised everyone by confessing that she didn't enjoy portraying that cruelty at all. She, who normally immersed herself with pleasure in darker roles, left the scene visibly shaken. The idea of carving the word mudblood into Hermione's arm even came from the actresses themselves, who wanted to give more emotional weight to the scene. What Bellatrix Lestrange did for Helena's career goes far beyond the credits in the most lucrative franchise in film history. She definitively solidified the image of an actress capable of inhabiting chaos with surgical precision, transforming eccentricity into pure art. If you still had any doubts about the scope of Helena Bonham Carter's talent, the King's Speech arrived in 2010 to put them to rest. After years of playing villains, witches, and characters on the edge of sanity, Helena appeared on screen as Queen Elizabeth, wife of George VI, with a serenity and delicacy that disarmed even the most skeptical critics. It was like watching a painter who had always worked with explosive colors pick up a fine brush and produce a perfect watercolor. The role was challenging for reasons opposite to what she was used to. There was no eccentricity to hide behind, no extravagant costumes or elaborate makeup to build the character. It was just Helena, her presence, and her ability to communicate love, support, and strength with a look or an almost imperceptible gesture. And she delivered all of that with a naturalness that earned her Oscar and BAFTA nominations for Best Supporting Actress, the BAFTA of which she very deservedly took home. In her BAFTA acceptance speech, Helena made a point of publicly thanking Tim Burton, calling him her genius and crediting him with part of her evolution as an actress. It was a rare moment of genuine vulnerability in a ceremony full of protocol, and the audience responded with a warm ovation. It was confirmation that Helena had reached a level where her name alone was a guarantee of quality, regardless of the genre or style of the project. Some breakups arrive like a bolt of lightning on a sunny day, and others like a tide that slowly rises until it can no longer be ignored. The end of Helena Bonham Carter and Tim Burton's relationship in 2014, after 13 years together, seemed impossible to many fans. After all, they were two such perfectly imperfect universes that the idea of separating them seemed almost a crime against art. But real life doesn't follow a script, not even when both protagonists are experts at writing stories. Helena was honest about the process, calling the end of the relationship a divorce even though they were never officially married. She grieved, wore black for a long time, and didn't try to pretend she was okay when she wasn't. The most difficult moment, according to her, was dividing her time with her children, Billy and Nell, because no shared custody arrangement can fill the void left by a functioning family, even if in a completely unconventional way. Tim, generous even at the end, left the two neighboring houses to Helena. What's impressive about this story is the maturity with which the two handled their separation publicly. No declarations of war, no unnecessary exposure, no turning their children into emotional bargaining chips. Helena said in an interview that the success of a relationship shouldn't be measured solely by its duration, and that what she and Tim built together, their children, the films, and the enduring friendship was an enormous gift that she cherished with genuine affection. The separation from Tim Burton was painful, but it wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning of a new phase. Helena, who had always used acting as an escape from reality, this time chose to face reality head-on, process the pain without shortcuts, and emerge on the other side more whole than before. Some people grow old trying to fit into a mold that was never theirs, and some people grow old becoming more and more themselves. Helena Bonham Carter clearly belongs to the second group. While the world of fashion and entertainment demands a silent adaptation from women as the years go by, Helena went in the opposite direction, buying clothes in thrift stores and flea markets, mixing Victorian pieces with modern references, and appearing on red carpets in combinations that left fashion columnists unsure whether to praise or criticize. And she couldn't be less concerned about it. Her relationship with fashion has always been a direct extension of her eccentric personality, a way of communicating without words that she wasn't for sale according to any standard. Designer Alexander McQueen was one of her favorites, but she herself admitted that the selection criterion was simple. If she liked it, she wore it, regardless of what any style manual said. Rihanna even playfully teased her wardrobe in an interview, and Helena laughed along, because that's exactly the kind of person she is. In her personal life, the surprise came in the form of Rory Kinnear, a writer and scholar 21 years her junior, with whom Helena began a relationship she herself described as unexpected magic. The irony of experiencing a similar age difference in real life to that of Princess Margaret, the character she played in The Crown, did not escape her notice, and she addressed the matter with her characteristic good humor. Love arrived when she had stopped looking, as often happens with the most important things. Some artists reach a certain point in their careers and begin to repeat formulas that have already worked, living off a glorious past, as if the future has nothing more to offer. Helena Bonham Carter is exactly the opposite of that. In recent years, she has immersed herself in projects so diverse and courageous that they would make actresses half her age envious, proving that reinvention has no expiration date when it comes with genuine talent and an insatiable curiosity about humanity. In The Crown, she brought Princess Margaret to life with a complexity that went far beyond the caricature of a rebellious and troubled woman that official history usually portrays. Helena researched extensively, spoke with people close to the princess, and even consulted a medium to try to capture the essence of the character, which sounds absolutely like her. The result was Emmy and Golden Globe nominations, and a performance that made the world rethink who Margaret really was beneath all that pressure and loneliness. In Enola Holmes, she brought lightness and humor alongside Millie Bobby Brown, who described her as one of the most generous actresses she has ever worked with. Helena Gordon's role in Nolly in 2023 is perhaps one of the most significant of this recent phase. She played Noelle Gordon, a television actress who was publicly fired after 18 years from a successful show, without warning or explanation, and replaced by a woman 30 years younger. Helena immersed herself in this story with visceral identification, speaking openly about how women shouldn't have to apologize for aging. It was almost as if the role was a personal manifesto as much as a performance. Helena Bonham Carter's legacy is not just a list of memorable films or awards won. It's a living demonstration that authenticity is the rarest and most powerful asset an artist can possess. From Harry Potter to Fight Club, from Alice in Wonderland to The King's Speech, she never stopped surprising, never stopped taking risks, and never let anyone define the extent of her talent for her. Talent without authenticity is empty technique, and authenticity without courage is a dream that never leaves the drawing board. Helena combined the two with an intensity that the whole world recognized, and you can do the same in your field, in your life, and in your own unique and irreplaceable way. If this story moved you, challenged you, or made you think differently about who you are, and what you are capable of building, then it has fulfilled its purpose. Now it's up to you. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and come follow more stories of people who have transformed their lives into works of art. There's much more to come, and you won't want to miss a single chapter.